Welcome to Paradigms at paradigms.life, the radio show and podcast that brings you inspiring people with visions of a viable future for life on Earth that includes humans. Hi, I'm Baruch, host of Paradigms. Thanks for listening. I'm really glad to be here with you, sharing a truly wonderful guest. She's been on the show before. She's a composer, a musician, person of conscience who offers music from the heart, and it will touch you. She's involved with many projects that celebrate and explore the human condition. She'll tell us all about those. So let's meet my guest right now on this episode of Paradigms. Lili Haydn, welcome back to Paradigms.
Thank you so much for having me, Baruch.
I'm really happy to talk with you again, and this time we get to do it as a video call.
Very cool.
Very
Put
cool.
on my fun little hippie coat.
Yeah, you look great. So, what have you been up to lately? I know you've been making lots of music. I know you just did a soundtrack for a film. You had another album nominated for a Grammy. Tell me what's happening in your life and in your musical life.
Well, my heart is all music all the time and human rights. And so, I'm informed by the tumult that is, by the storms around us. And so I'm really lucky as a film composer to be able to score films that speak to people suffering. So the last film I did was called Split at the Root. The soundtrack came out last month as well. I'm really proud of this work, and the movie just speaks to our broken immigration system and gives voice to people whose experience you rarely get to really feel intimately connected to. So that is a real blessing. Before that, I got to do the second season of a TV show that I score called Ginny Georgia. And I've just found out one of Netflix's top 10 shows of all time, actually. Ginny Georgia, the pilot's a little clunky, but after that, it's a total binge-worthy show. And so that's really fun. I work with a partner on that named Ben Bromfield, and I had never done television before that, but he made it easy, and I gotten to do songs and score and be sort of part classical, part pop, part everything that I am, and quirky, which is fun. And then Opium Moon, which is the other part of is another chamber of my heart, and we're making a new album. Our last album was nominated for a Grammy as well. This will be our third album, and the magic that happens when we just get in a room together is just still so palpable, no matter what, various directions we go in. So that's really exciting. We're bringing in a handful of guests this time so that we can, continue evolving the story. And the album will be called Where We Are Gathered, which speaks to all the ways in which we as humanity gathers and needs to gather in order to solve the issues that are before us.
Well, it sounds like you're having a great time.
Yeah, it's really fun. I have a lot to keep track of, and I'm very grateful.
It seems to me, I've been doing this show we're finishing our 14th year, and I get to talk with all these creative people, and it seems to me that a lot of people's joy comes through their creativity. It's sort of obvious to say it, but, we think of artists often as tortured and producing through their pain, and that's true too. But the experience of one's creativity blossoming brings joy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the best thing in the world for me. Just to be in the zone, to feel melodies coming through. And I just started working on a new documentary called American Theocracy. And of course, it's about Christian nationalists, and it's kind of the scariest. It's really scary because these people have a long game. They're very determined. They're very effective. And clearly, they've hijacked American politics. And so this documentarian, he's, I guess, in his mid, maybe even late 70s. This is really part of his life's work. He was working with People for the American Way with Norman Lear, and you can feel his passion. And he came to me with this film, and as I'm experiencing it, a theme comes to me, and I thankfully have gotten to a place where I'm agile enough to be able to just put it down, and I played it for him, and it lifted the film. And in the process of kind of channeling this being open to receiving the music that can help deliver this message. It's so soul edifying, and it lifted his spirits. And who knows if we'll be able to capture the Supreme Court again. I really hope we do. And maybe with winning over enough hearts and minds, we can move the political needle to do that. But in the process of getting there, we've certainly lifted 2 souls.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. It sounds like a really important piece of work. Well, that's a whole topic. We can revisit that political thing, but yeah. So that's really wonderful. And people are going through what they're going through, and everyone needs all the tools they can get, And so if finding a way to express one's creativity, even in a way that no one else ever hears or sees or reads or whatever, it's worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes I just serenade my cat.
Lucky cat.
Or even just sing to her, and there's and just connecting to another spirit in a pure creative way opens my heart, makes my life feel more meaningful.
It's such a pleasure to welcome back Lili Haydn, and as you've already heard, Lili is working on projects that inspire her. We're going to hear more about those, but first let's get some music going. Lili has written a song inspired by and dedicated to the women of Iran. It's called Women, Life, Freedom. Here it is. This is Paradigms at paradigms.life.
زن زندگی آزادی زن زندگی آزادی
Women, Life, Freedom. Lili Haydn's new song dedicated to the women of Iran and their ongoing struggle for liberation and freedom from an oppressive regime. Here's the next part of my conversation with Lili Haydn. When you have a day, if you have such a day, where all the stuff we just were referring to and more gets you down, you must have those moments.
Oh, sure, yeah.
What do? How do you remember, oh, right, I can make music that will help? Do you forget sometimes and just get stuck in it? What's your process around that stuff?
Well, fortunately, I've lived through enough cycles of depression and, the vicissitudes of being human that I remember that it's impermanent and that it will pass. My mom used to say, never assess your life when you're tired. So I try to remember that. And when I remember that, when I have a negative voice in my head, talking me into whatever downward spiral, I at least have the wisdom now to remember that that's not the only voice in the room, that's speaking to an underlying need that's not being met. So I try to ask myself the question, well, what is it that you're not getting? Most of the time, it's not enough sleep, or it's not enough time for me by myself to just hear my own thoughts. I think we really all are so inundated by the news cycle and our phones and the daily, regimen of requirements of, how we have to show up for other people. And if we let it, it could just be nonstop. So I try to take at least 5 minutes in the morning to reorient myself with my soul's purpose. And I talk to a number of, teachers and healers and spiritual advisors, and, and I read Thich Nhat Hanh, and I've sort of cobbled together kind of a morning meditation, leave 5 extra minutes in the morning to just say, I am source manifested.
Beautiful.
And I anchor myself in that. And my intention is to feel the unconditional love that is all around me, and to let that just seep into every one of my cells, every synapse, every brain, to be so filled with unconditional love that it actually impregnates my entire being on every level, and I start giving birth to it. That's my intention. So that everything that comes out of me, musically, every thought, so that I see through the eyes of love, so that I see through the eyes of compassion, so that everything that comes out of me is an emanation of that unconditional love. And when I anchor myself there, usually it sets me on the right trajectory. It's not that I don't go down some torturous rabbit holes, because obviously that's what human beings do, but at least it tethers me to my purpose. And then I don't usually spin off too far.
And as you say, repeating this as a daily, or maybe not daily, maybe a few days every week, but the repetition of an intention, people talk about manifesting. It's not actually this weird magical thing. It's simply when we have an intention, our thoughts are actually real. They're not like air. Their air is real, but it's actually the movement of particles in the universe. So when you have a thought, an intention, and you actually focus that, it's like going on a river. You can go with the current, you can go against the current and work a lot harder. But if you can find a way in which your intention and the current of the river are going in the same direction, that's the ticket.
Yeah, and then you have to make it actionable. My mom, Lotus Weinstock, the comedian, she was the first woman to perform at the Comedy Store. You and I have been through this before. My mom was a comedian. Her name was Lotus Weinstock, like the flower. And she was the first woman to perform at the Comedy Store. And she was engaged to Lenny Bruce the last year of his life, and very much of that consciousness vein of comedy. So I grew up with a lot of, she was brilliant. She was the most brilliant. And also, she did not get recognized the way she ought to have been. So I've kind of wrestled with the mind of seeing somebody that brilliant not manifest in this world. And it really was kind of a torture for her and for me in a way, because it didn't make sense. And I think out of loyalty, I've held myself back a little bit. But I recently realized that she wouldn't want that for me. And I have let go of that template to a certain degree. I'm also the same age she was when she was diagnosed with cancer. So I had to come to a little bit of a reckoning this year where all right, well, I don't want to go down that path. I need to forge my own path. And in order to take the intention and actually manifest it, you have to take action. So I try to, yes, as you say, I'm on the river.
After we talked last time, I went to YouTube and I watched your mom and
great.
really enjoyed her. And she's very, very smart and very funny, but it's not frivolous humor.
No, correct.
It's the kind of humor that's actually healing because it addresses real wounds.
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear you say that. Yeah, she was a real light, and I hope at some point to be able to get to do a documentary about her or something like that. I've talked to a handful of people recently about possibly doing that, and her peers are starting to pass away. So there is a time factor.
It's hard to believe you're that old. I mean, not old, but...
Yeah, no, it's hard to believe. Yeah, well, as a creative person and as a person, I don't have kids. Every day is the first day for me, and I exfoliate. So music and creativity keep me young. I don't have a sense of there being a ticking clock so much until I look at friends of my mom's passing away. But I lost my mom. She was only 54 when she finally died. So anybody who lives older than that, I don't have a normal person's kind of timeline in terms of is an appropriate time to transition.
Lili told us a bit about the film she just scored, Split at the Root. Here's some music from that soundtrack. It's called Never Again Is Now. Lili Haydn, Never Again is Now, from the soundtrack of the film Split at the Root. Now we're going to get back to my conversation with Lili Haydn, hear some more about her inspirations. So this movie, Split at the Root, I assume that you watch the film, you listen into your brain and your heart and your soul and see what comes. How do you put an intention into the sounds you're creating? I mean, I know you're not like sitting there calculating notes. You know, it's about the magic of music.
So funny. It's like music really is my first language. You know, I learned to speak before that, obviously. I was 8 when I started to play, but it wasn't safe for me to express my emotions, really, because my father was so dangerous. He was a sociopath and drug addict and into weapons, and he was really troubled. So it wasn't until I started to play violin that I could actually express myself in a way that was completely connected to what was happening inside and completely acceptable. Like people could feel me and hear me without there being children should be seen and not heard, or you don't express your anger, or you don't talk, you know. So it's completely connected to it's like a primordial language for me. It's almost like synesthesia in a way, where like I'll see something, I'll hear somebody talk, and especially with my violin, I just know what sound, I have a sense of what sound might be a matching sound. And the more facile I get with scoring, the more able I am to use every color in the orchestra and in the world, whether it's a banging of a table or a scratching of a surface of the concrete or scratching of my head, whatever it is that kind of conjures up that relates to what's happening in front of me. And it's a really visceral experience. I can't explain it, but that particular craft is so well suited to what my abilities are, I think, and the way I relate to the world. I also started acting when I was 7. So I relate to a scene emotionally and not so intellectually. The intellectual part is what I'm now actually having to like fortify myself with. Now, there's a lot of stuff that I'd like to do that I just do by trial and error that could be more efficient. And so I'm actually, with each film and with each project, I get better. And actually, I just wrote a quintet just for the sake of getting more facile with, you know, just being able to put it together, get it scored. In fact, and so tomorrow night I have a quintet recording a little 3 movements. And I don't know where these pieces came from, but one of them is named after my cat, the kitten, Shunya, who's got a little Pixar meow. It's cuter than anything I would have intentionally written, but it was a melody that just would not shut the up. So I had to write it.
Awesome. That is so cool. You know, you just gave us another example of how our gifts come from our wounds.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is such an important thing for people to understand and embrace, because people feel their wounds, but they don't often realize, mine it. There's something in there for you. And I want to say this is kind of woo sounding, or it wouldn't have happened. You know, like the things that have happened in my life that have broken me the most, at the time, I couldn't see a gift in it. But as time goes by, I'm able to go, oh, there is a gift in that. There is something in there for me. And, oh, this thing I can do that maybe not everyone can do, I can track it. So that's just such a good thing for people to know about themselves.
And even if you don't believe in the sort of destiny aspect of it, you can at least say it happens. And the people who survive are the ones who figure out how to make it a gift.
Yep.
That's the question for me. And you don't have to be spiritual to use this. You can just say, how is this a gift? Because the alternative is just a quick trip to hell. And that's always an option. You can always do that. But maybe there's an alternative. And if you want to explore the alternative, how is this a gift? So I can even trace like the TV show that I got, which actually was a real catalyst for my being able to get an agent and to be able to do a bunch of, actually I had an agent before, but it's like it started it was a little bit of a stamp of approval by a studio. And so that's made me more eligible for other projects that I want to do. And that came because I was trying to get another show and I had a partner and I was trying to team up with another composer, and we were on our way to like be pitching for this show that I thought I was perfect for. And at the last minute, they basically had to bow out unceremoniously, and I was left in the lurch. And instead of just feeling like a victim, I called somebody else who was a TV veteran who I thought might be up for, championing a woman composer, which, by the way, I'm on the board of the Alliance for Women Film Composers, and that's, we're making inroads everywhere. But, and it didn't work out with him, but when somebody came to him saying, who should I partner with on this show, he thought of me. And up till that point, I had just been his violinist and singer. He didn't know me as a composer. So it was really only my having been left in the lurch and reaching out to this other guy that was the path to my getting this other thing. I find that it's really how you get up when you get knocked down.
Let's hear some more music from the soundtrack of Split at the Root, and then we'll be back with my conversation with Lili Haydn. You're listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life. We just heard some music from the soundtrack of the film Split at the Root. I hope you'll check it out. Now let's get back to my conversation with Lili Haydn.
Those trips to hell, I do them with less and less frequency, which I'm glad of, and they're shorter, but they still happen. And what I find is whatever it is that sent me there, I go into that space, and I just think of it as a shamanic journey. I'm going into the hut of darkness, and I have to battle my demons and come out the other side. And when I do, I will be different.
Yeah. Well, what I like to do with that is, because it can be scary, especially if you come from an environment where there was true danger. You know, I mean, people did lose their lives. My father was probably a murderer, and you know, there was some real things to be afraid of. So what I like to do is when I'm gonna go into the shadow, I like to put myself in a circle of safety. So I set my intention, I surrender, I call in my guides, my higher self, my future self, my, you know, the angels, whoever it is that is, you know, the part of me that knows it, we're all okay. And this too shall pass. And I will sometimes even like take a bunch of socks and make a circle and sit in a circle where I'm saying, okay, in this zone, I'm allowing myself to go as dark as I need to go in order to figure out what's going on with, you know, what need do I need to address? What voice do I need to hear in order to come out the other side? But at least I've set my intention to come out the other side, because there is, you know, I have mental illness in my family. I have been destructive before. I have been, I have felt, I'll tell you a story. So my father was, you know, very disturbed. This was not an easy incarnation for him. Let's just say that. And I would sometimes go into a fit of rage, partly because I think it was, you know, I was imitating my dad in a way. And it seemed to be, even though my mom was the dominant force in my life, you know, when you have a boogeyman, it does sort of inform your psyche. So I had a lot of rage, and when I would indulge in it, things would break, relationships would break, I would get hurt, somebody would get, like, it would go dark. I'd moved in with my now husband and his son and I had a challenging time, and his son moved out, and he left his cat with us, and his cat had a nervous breakdown and started peeing everywhere where he used to be, and especially by the door where he left out of the door. And it was kind of heartbreaking at first, but it also, cat piss is like, you know, is like a weapon. And it was driving me crazy. And it was Yom Kippur, and a friend had just died, and she had just peed again. And I picked her up, and I would never hurt an animal. I would never actually hurt an animal. I love cats, especially, are my beings. I love them more than humans most of the time, sometimes. But I picked her up with that energy of rage, and I felt her tremble in my hand in a way that I had, you know, it wasn't because I'd hurt her. It was the energy, and I actually got to feel the frequency of destruction of that rage. And I realized that I didn't want to destroy anymore. I only want to love. And I realized that that was the energy of my father. And that not only was I not crazy for having been afraid of him, I was so grateful to have not been a victim, but also have not become a perpetrator, not have been lost to that energy. And even though I still have my vicissitudes, and I'm fierce in my ways, you know, I've never gone to that place again. And that cat became my guru. And I am just so grateful. I mean, that was 10 years ago, and I still, just recounting it, obviously, you know, I get emotional, and I thank God for that, because I never want to lose that touchstone.
Thank you for sharing that, because that's powerful. And I take that big, that humanity, we all as humanity need to learn this piece, that our destructiveness, which we're all capable of, and which en masse we are engaged in.
Yeah.
We have a choice.
Yeah.
It's really powerful.
I think part of the reason that it's so easy for us to indulge in it is that we don't feel the immediate consequences of it. It's not palpable. I think what became real for me was feeling this little creature in my hand shaking.
Sure.
Like just really actually feeling the energy of distress. I was annihilating this poor little being with my energy. And I would never, nobody wants, there are some sociopaths out there, sure. But most of us, I think if we actually felt the real effect of that energy, we would stop doing it. The downside of social media and the globalization is that we're disconnected from the consequences of our actions a lot of times. I'm grateful for that. And also, by the way, that's another reason why I feel that the music that I do has a value because it allows people to feel their own hearts. And when people feel their own hearts, they're more likely to feel the heart in front of them.
One of the things I love talking with Lili Haydn is how open she is about her own process and her own life experience. Here's some more music. This one's called The Devil You Know. That's The Devil You Know. And now here's the final part of my conversation with Lili Haydn.
As much as in my political rage, I don't want to say this, in my heart of hearts, I know that even, yes, there are sociopaths, but most of the people that we see doing horrible things are acting out of their woundedness. They really are, and sometimes that can take people to a place where they are so disconnected that they literally commit atrocities. But most people aren't that. And if we can make contact with our pain in a way and express it and have tools and ways to let it out and not just feel stuck alone with it, maybe the world can become a healthier place for all of us. I mean, I always tell people, my job in life is make the world a better place for everyone in my little tiny way. And I think a lot of people feel that and believe that and do that. I think you're one of them. But when people feel like, oh, it's too much, if we can remember it is a lot. And it is even too much sometimes, but we are capable of reaching out and connecting. And that actually sounds so corny, but it lightens the load.
It definitely does. One of my spiritual teachers says, there's no problem in the world for which more love and understanding is not the answer. And I realized that only compassion is able to change the course of a given situation. In my brain research, because I had brain damage, I don't know if we've covered this in other episodes, but I had brain damage from pesticide poisoning in my house. That's actually in 30 to 60 million homes in America. It's still shipped overseas, even though it's illegal. It's called chlordane, and I became chemically sensitive to it, and it was used to prevent termites. Anyway, so I did a lot of brain research. I got my brains back by playing music, actually. And I did a TED Talk about it. So if you're interested, you can see how I got my brains back, or how music saved my brain. Anyway, so in my brain research, I've discovered that when the amygdala, the fight or flight brain, is activated by fear or whatever it is, it hijacks the energy from the rest of the brain. So it actually robs your brain of the ability to be empathetic, to be able to truly love. When you're in fight or flight, it really is fear or love. And I realized that when we're dealing with people who are activated by fear, everybody who watches Fox News, what you're dealing with is somebody whose fears need to be heard and assuaged before they can be open to reason, compassion, maybe alternate, like actual facts, or any kind of other activity in the brain, really in earnest. And I realized that fighting with people and just meeting, might against might, eye for an eye, it really will never work. Only by listening, only by meeting people's basic human needs and hearing them with compassion will we be able to transcend the divisions that we have.
So instead of yelling at people on Facebook, we can tell them, I know you're hurting and you deserve love.
You know what? You have to be careful about, telling people, like, I know you're hurting. You have to, because that will only make them feel vulnerable, like more afraid. What you can say is, please help me understand what your viewpoint is. I'm interested. Please tell me more. Explain where you're coming from. Where is this really? And by actually listening, we have the possibility of opening people up. There's a woman named Loretta Ross who teaches at Columbia, I believe, and she wrote an article for the New York Times and did a TED Talk called "What If Instead of Calling People Out, We Called Them In?" She is a professor of African American Studies. Her job before that was to help transition people out of hate groups. So she would go to KKK meetings and help get people out. People whose entire lives were completely indoctrinated with overt forms of hate. And she, as this big Black woman, would talk to them and say, just tell me more. Help me understand what it is. And by listening and by unburdening a person, she actually was able to make a connection that allowed them to drop the hate. I've been so moved by this, and it makes me remember, because it's very hard, especially when I'm looking at, this documentary on Christian nationalism and the hate and the vitriol that's spewing out of these people's mouths. It's hard to remember that. but I don't see a path forward that does not involve listening.
That's really, really important and powerful and beautifully said. Thank you.
And thank you. And to that, and in that spirit, Opium Moon, who we're going to have a new album out in August. I hope we can all join you for that. That's the essence of Opium Moon, which is basically the way we make music is a template for how to make peace in the world, because we have to listen to each other. We have to honor each other's contributions, cultures. We have to make room for each other. We have to harmonize, which essentially means listening and speaking at the same time. It's a graceful dance of giving and receiving and respecting and listening. And that truly it is the embodiment. It is the change that we want to see in the world.
Lili, thank you again so much. I'm always happy to talk with you. I always feel like we're operating with the same intentions, and it's beautiful.
Likewise. Thank you. Thank you so much, Baruch. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and I look forward to resuming the conversation in August, I hope.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As you can tell, Lili Haydn is a person of depth and caring, and she brings that to her work because, as she said, music really is her life. This is what she brings to the world. It's really great music. I hope you've been enjoying it and enjoying Lili, the person. The projects Lili works on all speak to our humanity and the common good and how we can grow and learn and make a better world for all of us. There's so much happening in the world. It seems like a struggle between those who seek to control and oppress and the rest of us, the majority of humanity, who just want to live our lives with love and community and freedom to be ourselves, whether it's Christian nationalism in the U.S., the oppression of women in Iran, or any of the many authoritarian, violent forces. Humanity has the opportunity always, and that means each one of us, to choose the common good, to choose, really, love. Because what else is there if we stopped oppressing each other, country invading country, men oppressing women, people trying to force their religion on others, people trying to force gender or sexual identity on others, oppression based on skin color or place of origin. If we really chose to accept each other with our differences, what would this world be like? Imagine a world without war, without hate, a world where people are not driven by fear or manipulated for the sake of money and power. What would that be like? And if we want that, we can choose it. Lili offers that in her music and in her choice of projects. So thank you, Lili. Opium Moon is just finishing up recording a new record. It will be coming out in September. We'll be talking with the band around that time. So you'll want to check in with Paradigms in September. If you'd like to know more about Lili Haydn herself, her projects, her website is lilihaydn.com, LILIHAYDN.com. And if you go to the Paradigms website, paradigms.life, you'll find links to the new film about Christian nationalism, Split at the Root, and more. So once again, thank you, Lili. Paradigms is just starting our 15th year. This is the first show of year 15. Much gratitude to all the guests who've been on the show. So many inspiring people. They inspire me. And many thanks to all of you who listen to the show and support Paradigms. I hope you'll check out the archives at paradigms.life or wherever else you find your podcasts. We're coming up almost on 600 episodes. There's bound to be at least a few that speak to you. As always, we're going to close out the show with some music. This is called More Love. And let's let that be the word for the week. Love. love as action, how we treat ourselves, how we treat each other, how we approach our lives, how we approach each other. It's not about romantic love. It's about the very real connections that we all share. All right. Baruch signing off for this episode of Paradigms. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with more inspiring people. Until then, love and be well.
Broken boy, broken girl, broken heart for a broken world. Take me as I am tonight, grateful just to be alive. Life is a miracle. Can you see more love, more light? Darkness don't stand a chance against us. More love, more light. Darkness don't stand a chance against us. Life is a miracle. Can you see? More love, more light. Darkness don't stand a chance against us. More love, more light. Darkness don't stand a chance against us. More love.
You've been listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life.